Good morning. The first item of business today is general questions. Our first question is from Maureen Watt.
Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports of women, including single mothers, resorting to so-called survival sex because their universal credit payments do not cover the basic needs of daily living.
Minister Christina McKelvey.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. It's absolutely disgraceful that women should have to resort to survival sex, as it's sometimes known. Even the term makes my blood run cold, I have to say. But resorting to that for their most basic needs, such as food and shelter. It's a very complex issue. However, it is clear that already vulnerable women are being badly affected by universal credit's worst aspects, such as the 5-week wait, punitive sanctions and the hated 2-child limit. We support the recommendations in the UK Parliament's Work and Pensions Committee's recent report on this issue. We have also repeatedly called on the UK Government to fix the problems with universal credit, to protect the most vulnerable in society and to prevent more people from being pushed into poverty, such as the women that Maureen Watt has raised in her question.
Maureen Watt.
I thank the Minister for that answer. And I'm sure, like me, she was saddened, and I can hear angered, like me, to hear that CFINE, the Aberdeen-based community food bank, a great organisation, won a reward actually in here this week. They've been contacted by the local police to help women engaging in sex work as a result of this desperate situation. Does this not demonstrate how totally out of touch recent Tory Westminster governments have been with the benefit system, and emphasises that all powers relating to social security should be transferred to this Parliament as soon as possible?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, no one in this chamber will be surprised to hear that I completely agree with the member.
You're laughing.
Presiding Officer.
All right, order please, order please. The Minister's answering a question.
It would be quite nice if the member was actually here for the first question and understand how serious this issue is, instead of sitting there laughing like a child. Presiding Officer is still rattling on. Presiding Officer, it's imperative that all powers relating to social security are devolved to this Scottish Parliament immediately. In 2018-19, we invested £1.4 billion to support low-income households. This includes £100 million per year to mitigate the most damaging parts of universal credit and try to prevent the very situations that the member Maureen Watt has highlighted. However, the sheer scale of the UK Government cuts make mitigation by the Scottish Government unsustainable. In fact, Professor Philip Alston, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, had said that mitigation comes at a price and it's not sustainable. We agree with him. He also commented that this Scotland is on a very different trajectory than England when it comes to the social protections of its populations. Clearly, Presiding Officer, mitigating aspects of universal credit does not address the fundamental flaws in its system. And as I said, only full powers over the delivery of universal credit and the wider social security system coming to this place will do.
Elaine Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government's Equally Safe strategy defines commercial sexual exploitation such as prostitution, lap dancing, stripping and pornography as forms of violence against women and girls. And given that the strategy acknowledges that such behaviour stems from systemic, deep-rooted women's inequality, what steps are the Scottish Government taking to support women who are trying to leave prostitution and to prevent more women and girls from falling victim to violence in this way?
Minister.
Thanks very much, and thanks very much for that question to Elaine Smith. The Scottish Government is absolutely committed to preventing and eradicating violence against women and girls. We are implementing Equally Safe, the Scottish Government causally-led strategy for preventing and eradicating such violence. In November 2017, we published our Equally Safe delivery plan, which contains 18 different actions for over 4 priority areas in order to help us challenge harmful stereotypes and attitudes, improve frontline services and hold perpetrators to account. In November 2019, we will publish our second Equally Safe Progress report, which highlights key progress and outlines some of the priorities for the year ahead. The Scottish Government has committed to consult on challenging men's demands for prostitution, as well as seeking views on reducing harm and supporting women to exit prostitution. The consultation is in its very early stages, and we are currently working with key stakeholders to map out what the consultation should include. The drivers for women entering into prostitution, including economic hardship, which, as the member has highlighted, may be exacerbated exacerbated by the role of universal credit are being considered as part of the process.
Question number 2, Jeremy Belvoir.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what support it can provide to the owners of properties, including the Western Harbour development in Edinburgh, who are facing difficulties in trying to sell or remortgage because of their homes have aluminium cladding.
Minister Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We are aware of the difficulties being experienced by people across Scotland who are trying to obtain mortgage lending for properties with external cladding, and that's all external cladding. And I know that the anxiety that this will be causing homeowners across the country. While responsibility for mortgage lending is a matter reserved to the UK Government, we are doing what we can to push for a solution as soon as possible. Scottish Government officials held discussions with the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors this week. Officials have also held discussions with the UK Government and UK Finance, most recently with the UK Government on Wednesday the 6th of November. I wrote to the UK Government on the 18th of October and to UK Finance on the 5th of November, seeking early action, with a further letter to the UK Secretary of State on Friday the 8th of November to impress upon them the importance of a quick solution. In doing so, I've offered Scottish Government assistance to support the industry's development of a sensible way forward, and we continue to push for a solution which takes account of Scotland's legal system and particular requirements. Jeremy
Belvoir.
I'm grateful for the Government Minister answer. A constituent contacted me just yesterday to say that the sale of their flat has fallen through because the new purchasers simply couldn't get a mortgage. So, as you highlighted, this is an issue not only in Edinburgh but across Scotland. As the Minister has pointed out, there are separate legal issues affecting this because of Scottish law. So will he work on clear guidelines with mortgage lenders to make sure that Scottish legal issues are dealt with out with those around the rest of the United Kingdom?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, as I pointed out in my initial answer, I've already been in touch with the Secretary of State on 2 occasions to try and find a solution to this. We do not control mortgage lending here in Scotland. It is a UK reserved matter. I hope that Mr Balfour and the Conservatives will join with me in pushing Mr Jenrick, the Secretary of State, to respond so that we can find a solution so that his constituents and other homeowners who are finding themselves in very, very difficult positions at this moment in time can be helped by a solution put forward in cooperation with the UK Government. I do wish that we had control of all of these matters here. It would make life much easier, but while that's not the case, I would ask others in the Chamber to support us in trying to get the UK Government to take some action on this issue.
Question number 3 has been withdrawn. Question number 4, David Torrance.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to raise awareness among young people of their employment rights.
Minister Kate Forbes.
Well, increasing understanding about employment rights and responsibilities is key to creating a fairer workplace, and learning about the world of work forms a key part of the school curriculum, and employment rights are a key part of career education for young people at school, particularly in their senior phase. So we support the STUC's Unions into Schools programme, which helps young people understand the importance of workers' rights and the role played by trade unions in the modern workplace. And other bodies such as ACAS and Citizens Advice Scotland and trade unions can also play an important role in advising young people on their rights at work.
David Torrance.
I thank the Minister for that answer. Citizen Advice Scotland Do the Right Thing campaign is currently raising awareness among young people of their rights at work. They found that 1 in 10 young people don't know a minimum wage is a legal requirement, and see numerous cases of young people taking advantage of it at work. The charity is also collecting examples online of poor employment practice to better understand the issues young people face at work. Would the Cabinet Secretary therefore encourage young people to submit any bad work experiences anonymously to Citizen Advice so it can continue to campaign for a fair deal at work for young people?
Minister.
Well, I would agree with the member that this is a very important campaign, and I would encourage any young people to submit any examples that they have where they feel they've not been treated fairly at work to this campaign, and to raise those with Citizens Advice Scotland or trade unions or ACAS, who have a statutory role to provide advice on employment matters. The campaign itself is very important, and it is important that young people know their rights at work and know where to go for advice.
Neil Findlay.
Will the Minister join me in giving 100% support to the mixed strikers the McDonald's workers who have walked out this week in protest at low pay and poor employment practices in one of the world's most profitable companies? And does the Minister agree that a £10 an hour living wage and a revolution in employment rights, as promised by the Labour manifesto, would be the best Christmas present young workers could receive this year?
Well, of course, in terms of the strikes and the points that the member has raised, I would support any individual who raises concerns about poor practice, particularly when their employers have a duty to ensure that there are fair working practices at play. And I'd be happy to pass on his question to the Minister for Business, which is Jamie Hepburn. And in terms of ensuring that workers across this country have a fair wage and fair practices, of course it is the SNP government that have introduced within the powers that we have the fair employment that we see in this country.
Thank you. Just remind members, raise any question they wish, but try not to keep direct political election campaigning in their question or... yes, Mr Lyle. In their question or answer. Question 5 has not been lodged. Question 6, Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to support the delivery of mental health services delivered by third sector organisations.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
Local integration authorities are responsible for planning and commissioning services, and we expect them to engage third sector organisations as key delivery partners. In this financial year, integration authorities have received over £6.4 billion to deliver on this work. Additional investment rising to £35 million in 2021-22 is committed to the delivery of 800 additional mental health workers in key settings, which can include the third sector. This is, of course, additional to the provision of counsellors in schools and further and higher education, and direct Scottish Government funding to third sector organisations for actions in delivering mental health services.
Brian Whittle.
To thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. She will be aware of organisations such as Ayrshire Cancer Support and Break the Silence in my area who deliver specialist mental health services, and I'm sure members have similar in their constituencies. Given that the NHS are routinely signposting patients to these organisations, does the Minister agree with me that the third sector is capable of shouldering some of the load that is piling up on CAMS services, and we therefore need to urgently reassess the way in which we fund this sector?
Cabinet Secretary.
I certainly agree with the member that the third sector plays a very vital part across Scotland, indeed in my own constituency, as he has referenced. The point I make is that we have provided £6.4 billion to integration authorities to deliver on these services. It is for the integration authorities to design and commission and plan for services that best meet their local needs. We provide significant financial support for that, and integration authorities involving local authorities, health boards and the third sector should be ensuring that they're maximising local resources in order to ensure that services are delivered. And I think the member would agree with me that it would ill behove a government to centralise even further than they already accuse us of doing and intervene directly in this matter. So I expect those integration authorities in Ayrshire to look very carefully at how well they are using their third sector expertise.
And Mary Fee.
Staff in mental health charities work selflessly to improve and treat the mental health of others. How can the Scottish Government support the mental health of the staff themselves who are delivering this mental health service?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for that question. I think she's absolutely right. Indeed, staff across all our work in mental health, be it statutory or third sector, do work extremely hard and often selflessly beyond the expectations that are placed on them. This forms part of the work that we are undertaking post-Stark. And we have that input from those third sector organisations in terms of how we create a positive working culture which focuses very much on the well-being of those who deliver those services. And I'll be happy in due course as that ministerial group progresses its work into the new year to ensure that members are updated on the initiatives that are going to be taken.
And question 7, Bruce Crawford.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how many people in the Stirling constituency have received a crisis grant through the Scottish Welfare Fund.
Cabinet Secretary Ian Campbell.
The most recent published statistics show that since April 2013, Stirling Council has awarded 11,880 crisis grants and 4,705 community care grants to 6,025 unique households. The total value of crisis grants awarded by Stirling Council within this period is over £1 million.
Bruce Crawford.
Startling figures, Minister. Does the Minister agree with me that the Heriot-Watt University report, State of Hunger 2019, is a damning indictment of the UK Government's welfare system? Indeed. Delays in universal credit payments, turned down for disability payments, sanctioned and cuts made to the value of payments, and more forced to use food banks. Does the Minister also agree with me that any politician who's defended this system should hang their head in shame? The people of Stirling and Scotland deserve so much better.
Cabinet Secretary.
I absolutely agree with Bruce Crawford on that. The research that he points to highlights that income is a key driver of food bank use and points to the UK Government's welfare reforms and cuts, because let's look at what any politician, let's look at what any Conservative might be choosing to defend. And in addition to that list that Bruce Crawford read out, thousands of families are being pushed into poverty. 86% of universal credit claimants have seen a fall in the amount they can earn before losing entitlement. 91% of Scottish households with benefit-capped housing benefit contain children. If any Conservative, if any politician chooses to defend that record, then they should feel utterly ashamed of themselves. We'll continue to choose a different path and choose to protect our people, to protect our communities and treat those folk that need most support with dignity, fairness at its very heart.
And Mark Rustle.
Acceptance rates for crisis grants have been falling steadily since the start of the scheme, and in the latest quarter hitting an all-time low of just 63% in Stirling. Can the Minister explain why only 2/3 of applications are currently accepted, and what the Government can do to reverse this falling trend?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, we'll continue to work with local authorities and continue to fund the Scottish Welfare Fund because of its utter necessity for families that require that help. If we didn't have that safety blanket for people, then people would be utterly destitute because of the severe and punitive impact of welfare reforms and cuts. And continue to work with the member if he wants to raise some of those issues further, but we continue to support the Welfare Fund and know that it's delivering for those that most need it.
And question 8, Jenny Gilruth.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is tackling poverty and inequality.
Cabinet Secretary Aileen Campbell.
This Government is committed to tackling poverty and inequality. Last year we invested £1.4 billion to support low-income households, including £100 million in welfare mitigation measures. We'll further enhance this support with our Scottish Child Pavement, described as a game-changer in tackling child poverty. Estimated social security spend of £350 million this year, including our Best Start grant, offers financial support across the early years to low-income parents, and will almost double funded early learning and childcare to 1,140 hours by August next year, and are helping people to work and earn more through Fair Start Scotland and a £22 million package of intensive support for parents.
Jenny Gilruth.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. Colleague Community Centre in my constituency is set to benefit from direct investment from the Scottish Government Communities Fund. That's great news for Glenrothes, but does the Cabinet Secretary share my anger that for every penny that goes into my community from the Scottish Government, pounds are stripped straight back out by cruel Tory benefit reforms, proving that what my community needs more than anything is full welfare powers devolved to this Parliament and used in their best interests?
Cabinet Secretary.
Again, I would absolutely agree with Jenny Gilruth, and I'm pleased that Colleague Community Centre have benefited from the fund. The fact is, though, Jenny Gilruth is right, the Tories have cruelly cut welfare since 2010, hitting the most vulnerable the hardest. And what we in this government are left doing is mopping up the UK government mess, mitigating, plugging the gaps and trying to do our best to support our communities. The new Social Security Agency provides a glimpse of what we could do with the powers we have to build a social security system based on dignity, fairness, respect. Imagine what we could do with the full powers over welfare, building a country that cares for its people, as opposed to what the Conservatives are pursuing, politically motivated, ideologically driven, callous, punitive cuts.